Hi, my name is Joe Jackson. I'm an interviewer and a broadcaster. And what you're about to hear is one of the 1,400 interviews I conducted over a 30-year period for nearly all major media outlets in Ireland. But please allow for the fact that many of the interviews were done for the print media and recorded on cassette tapes. So some are, let's say, sonically challenged. But sonic considerations should give way to historical significance, I believe. And I'm glad to say that at least some powers that be in RTE Radio 1 agreed with me on this, and broadcast between 2015 and 2018 many of my interviews in a series called The Joe Jackson Tapes Revisited. What follows is a programme I was going to broadcast in that series but never did. And this podcast differs in one major sense from all those shows. Look at it this way. Hot air blowing as this may sound on my behalf, it actually was editor Niall Stokes who said in 1988 that I brought, quote, psychology to the hot press interview. I think he should actually have said psychological probing. Either way, that had always been one of my idiosyncrasies, and it still is. And given that Tommy Tiernan began doing on TV in 2019 the kind of psychologically probing interview I did with him in 2004, I reckoned that maybe fans of the man might find it more interesting to hear the tapes we did, uncut and minus my usual revisionist narration. I also decided to steal from an ebook I wrote based upon my interviews with Tori Amos the phrase soul-searching and uncensored. I realised it applies as much to him as it did to Tori. But before I sit Tiernan down in Joe Jackson's psychiatrist's chair, no, I'm not a shrink, but that was a phrase Niall Stokes used as a subheading for an interview I did. Let me say this. Near the end of the first half hour, when Tommy, who was born in Donegal and 35 at the time of this interview, and I discussed the nature of the religious calling that, well, called out to us both as teenagers, I suggest that part of this spiritual craving probably sits at the soul of my interviews. I now believe that the same is true of everything Tommy Tiernan has done or will do. Part 2 of this interview will follow in a week or so. If you want to read the original article that came out of this chat, check joejacksoninterviewer.com.
And then I started doing stand-up when I was 26.
But you also went into that second bout of therapy after becoming a daddy.
Yes.
Did that help? What was he or she?
No, he was a nut.
Oh, was
he was a guy, I just read it, he was a little ad in the Galway Advertiser, right?
Right.
And he didn't, and you know, I think part of me didn't want it to work because I picked the guy who had no letters after his name. So it's just this guy.
All right. You still had that pen and monk on your fucking shoulder.
Yeah. I went to I rang him up, and he said, yeah, come on out. And I knocked on the door of the address, and these young fellas answered it, right?
Right.
And he had hired a room.
Absolutely was.
He'd hired a room that was in a house full of young fellas. So we went up into this room anyway, and I sat back in the chair like this, you know, and he was kind of gaunt looking, you know, and I did about 5, maybe 6 sessions with him, and then I just faded away.
But again, what did did any of these give interpretations or guidance, or did they help you get an insight into your character?
No, they didn't.
Right, okay.
No.
All right.
No. They were just, I don't think they did, no.
As you said, you kind of, it's self-defeating when you pick people who you almost don't believe in before you walk in.
Yeah.
Then you can tell yourself, I fucking tried. And you didn't.
Yeah, no, I didn't know.
You know what I mean? You didn't put the effort into it.
No. But at the same time, though, I was existing on my own. I didn't have, I didn't have a wise elder saying to me, what you need to do is, don't go to this guy. Go to him.
Where was your daddy?
Well, my dad was in Navan, which my dad...
Would you not phone him? Would you talk with them about that?
Well, I talked to my dad about most of it, but my dad wouldn't be someone who would be entirely comfortable with me saying I'm in therapy.
Okay.
But he would say, oh, well, the best of luck with it.
Right.
But
he wouldn't sit down for a 4-hour conversation.
No, and also I was in Galway as well, which is the other side of the country, and I used to tell them everything was fine. I'd phone home once every few months and stuff like that, and I'm okay, don't worry about me.
Because you didn't want to needlessly worry them.
No, and I part of it as well, probably, I didn't probably want to address it, because if I had told my dad said, well, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So I was, is this...
Were you also afraid that your father, as mothers and fathers, can't say, was it us? What did we do? Did we fail you?
I don't think so, no.
No, you didn't think that?
No.
I assume you knew they loved you.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it wasn't that kind of original absence?
No.
You knew they did. You
Yeah.
knew they were there.
I think it was just I didn't want to have. I wanted everything on my terms, and I didn't want to have a conversation with my parents about something which. It's like the earthquake I was talking about.
Yeah.
I was kind of yearning for an earthquake, but I
Yeah.
actually didn't have the vision to go through with it.
All right, you didn't want to initiate it.
Yeah. So I made all these false kind of starts, going to somebody who wasn't qualified.
Yeah.
You know.
Were you doing a lot of drugs and drink at that point?
No, I wasn't. No. Very little. I'm. I had a brief kind of
Fling with.
dance in that bar.
Okay. Until you tripped over.
But that wasn't.
That wasn't then.
No, and even when I was,
Galway, you weren't smoking your ass off.
No, I never smoked. See, if it had been a smoker, the whole dope scene in Galway used to
Galway,
be
it was
huge.
10
city.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they moved. Loads of people moved there for that reason.
But no, that wasn't ever.
To get away from the drug squad in Dublin.
Yeah, that was never anything that interested me. There.
All right, okay. All right. So how did you work yourself out of that mire? How did you get the focus? What made you say, I'm going to go for this? I'm going to go for what you're doing now? Was it becoming a daddy and responsibilities?
Probably.
I have to get money. I have to get a job.
Yeah, becoming a dad, and then as well, I think I worked with a comedy group in Galway called the Flying Pigs, and we used to do all these kind of half-hour comedy shows.
Where, in bars?
In bars, yeah.
Okay, as part of the Galway Festival?
It's part of just the year in Galway, a place called the King's Head.
Right, okay.
And worked with them for a while, and then I just...
But what gave you the original urge to do that? I mean...
Because
who had you admired someone from afar who was doing that?
No.
Because I know you love, and Yvonne told me you're absolutely into music.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you didn't form a rock band?
Can't sing.
Okay. Does
What-
that hold people back? What?
No. I used to go busking in Galway. It's myself.
Alright.
I don't know if you remember a band called the Judas Diary.
Yeah, I remember the names,
and
Hot Press.
We were the guys who were in that we all kind of lived together, and I was the only one who wasn't in the band.
All right, okay.
And what we used to do is I used to go busking with them. I could play two chords on the guitar, and I could only play them at a certain tempo and in a certain order. I
Alright.
couldn't go from that to that.
Okay.
But so I had to go that, and I was stopped the rest for a while, and then that.
So that wasn't going to be your
No,
career?
they had a 12-string guitar that they let me busk with.
All right,
And I had a big,
okay.
huge, long floppy cardigan, and the long hair was back, and we'd drink, and then we'd go out in the street and stuff like
Alright.
that. And I'd always be sure not to, because what you had when you're busking in this is, I mean, in Dublin at the same time, the hothouse flowers were the Benzini brothers, was
That's
it?
right, yeah, down in Gretna Street.
Yeah, so they were king buskers.
They were,
Now, what happens is when you busk is that you get other musicians, especially when you're 18 and 19, just seeing what chords you're playing. Right, so we'd have kids lined up in front of us trying to watch and I was
You'd be hiding your two.
Yeah.
They think you were trying to change the
That's it,
guitar.
yeah.
You're just hiding the fret. So you went for this instead. Just tell me, what was the one thing that overwhelmed you about being a daddy? When you said I was overwhelmed by it, was it the sudden demands?
No,
Looking at a
they were
baby.
gradual. No.
So what was overwhelming, emotionally or whatever, spiritually or whatever?
It's still overwhelming, and I don't know entirely what it is.
Do you know?
No.
Even on the third time, right? Have you not kind
Yeah.
of? But that first time, because a lot of people, I don't have kids, a lot of people tell me the first time can be particularly daunting, challenging, overwhelming.
No,
It's a
I
consistent
rushed
thing.
in like an Aegis. I had no. I had all the folly of youth on my side. I had no.
All right. So you just weren't ready for the whole scenario.
Yeah, I think I'm more aware of what it is now. Obviously.
Would hope so.
Would hope so.
You've had a few years
Yeah.
in between.
But I think at the time I was very much. It was like being. It was like a parallel universe had opened up beside me, and I had no idea how to behave in it. I had notions, but I had no
About
real.
being a daddy.
Yeah, but I wasn't really sure. But I loved it, and I still love it.
Did you love the child? Did you love your child the minute you saw it?
Oh,
This was
I
your
mean-
first son, wasn't it? No.
Above and beyond anything.
Did you?
Uh,
That feeling when you first held her, first looked at her, first touched, kissed, whatever.
No, it wasn't a thing that immediately happened. It was it was a thing that I. It wasn't that some people talk about when they're there at the birthday.
They do,
and
yeah.
and this
Yeah.
that's not what happened to
Okay.
me.
Like this surge of absolute
No.
soulful feeling.
No, I think this odd thing, this huge dislocation took place, and I realized maybe 6 months later that that's what it was. I realized 6 months later, oh my God,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
this is love. This really, you know.
Well, some woman told me that her partner only loved the child when the child uttered something that sounded like daddy.
Oh, really?
You know, that before then it was an abstract form and it was something that had come between him and the partner.
Yeah.
But when it said daddy, it was like, oh Jesus. And something just struck the man. And he suddenly said, now, and all the love came. Then
Yeah.
it was galvanized. So it's not anything you can predict.
No,
or
it's
that
not.
there's a pattern
No, it's not
that
a
we all
cliche.
follow.
No, it's not.
You
And it's
know?
not. I think for people, sometimes people expect to feel a certain way, and they think there's something wrong with them if they don't.
Yeah,
So they lie, and they say, "Oh, it's the minute he was born."
yeah, yeah.
No, it definitely took me 6 months to realize what was going on inside me, and that the way you love your children, it is you are. It's like walking around with 3 or 4 open wounds.
Okay. All right.
You're
Like
constant.
that you're aware of their pain, their sensitivity, or what?
Yeah, and that you're very easily hurt, and you're very vulnerable, and you're very you know, it's like being covered in raw meat. You know, it's a bit.
You're hurt, or you're aware that they're easily hurt.
You're aware that they're easily hurt. You're aware of your own shortcomings. You're aware of how much you love them and how much you want for them, and you're aware of the finality of life. You're aware of it basically you probably cast back to your own childhood as well, and,
Yeah.
and you think what an amazing time that was, and there's lots of stuff going on, you know. And
That becoming a father activates.
yeah, you know,
Right.
and not all, you know, it's all very beautiful. It's not very easy.
No, it's not easy. And it's
No.
not always beautiful either, is it?
Well, you get, you know, you go toe to toe with yourself sometimes, and the best side doesn't always win.
Yeah. But when you're aware of now this is only this may sound superficial. You're aware of the sensitivity of your children, right?
Yeah.
If you in a DVD mock one daughter at 20 months of being the fattest creature on the planet,
Yeah.
or if you say of a son, I hope I meet him at the end of the tunnel for a game of pool,
Yeah.
is that not potentially hurtful comments if their mates pick them up? Or the other
Yeah.
one says, you're a fantasist, you're fucking walking down the street like Batman, you gobshite.
Was
And
it-
do you
well,
not
yeah,
stop
no.
and say, I'm not going to risk this unnecessary
Yeah.
hurt to them?
I'm
Or do you warn them or something?
the he's about to disappear into the tunnel of adolescence, and please God, I'll see him at the far side of the
Yeah.
pool. That's I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, but it does sound like you're washing your hands of him and let the mother fucking deal with all his problems, and I'll see him when he can play a game of pool and it's sorted.
No, it's more.
Alright.
It's more kind of like he's about to. I'll always be there outside the tunnel, going hello, and I'll be there when he reaches the end of it, and I hope he'll have a game of pool with me,
Okay.
rather
alright.
than him sending him off on a.
On the Odyssey on his own?
No, it's not that. No, it's
Okay,
not
good.
that, no.
All right. And the thing about the child who's only... when was
15
this
months.
DVD made?
It was made in April. But
In April,
but
okay.
my daughter is much older than that.
Yes, so those comments, you've no fear at all. They know enough about you to know you love them enough to know this is not really
Yeah.
what they're saying.
No, I'm troubled about the line about my daughter. I am,
Okay.
yeah.
About being the fattest creature on the planet.
Yeah, but it's a kind of thing about a fat baby. I'm worried about that. I am worried about that.
Okay, but you do have to be, don't you?
Yeah.
It's just like, Charlotte, she did about Adam with you.
Yeah.
And she said, when you do sex scenes, or the one for her that really upset the kids was when she was shot
Yeah.
in a thing about Dirty Old Town, a gangster thing set
Yeah.
in Dublin. And they absolutely freaked and she hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
When they're 8, watching their mother her head being blown off by a fucking Dublin hitman.
Yeah.
So I don't think we always think of the extended resonances
No.
of these things, you know what I mean?
No.
But you would hope to be sensitive to those possibilities that it might have effect.
Yeah. I might have fucked up with that line about my
That
daughter.
one. Yeah.
I might.
Yeah. Are they scripted? Or is that just this free association with a
No, it's
vague
never
outline?
scripted. It's never scripted.
Alright.
It's instinctual.
Okay, so blame the monk.
Really? It wasn't me.
I wasn't there that night. I was in New York that night
Yeah.
when it was being recorded.
Yeah.
And my evil twin, you went toe to toe with yourself and you lost again. So tell me
And
how
the winner is.
the winner is for tonight's round. But then tell me how you kind of this you still went on this quest. I mean, after becoming a father and being overwhelmed by it, you still had this kind of exploring Buddhism, exploring still Christianity. You still had that drive.
Yeah.
So how did that resolve itself?
I mean, in my work now, I'm obviously drawn to some kind of rattling of the cage.
Yeah.
and kind of maybe wishing we had wings.
Okay.
And that's what it's about, really. It's about and
But you didn't start off with that kind of aspiration when you started doing the work.
well,
When
the
you
people
started breaking through.
no, the people I was drawn to were definitely
Like-
Lenny Bruce.
Okay.
I had this Carnegie Hall concert on tape.
Oh, Lenny's.
Yeah.
It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
But that I didn't understand. There's so many bits that I couldn't
Great.
get, and I used to listen to that every night going to bed, over and over and over again, and I listened to the lines of what is he that.
All right.
So and I think I liked I liked what Lenny Bruce was, and I got into Lenny
Which
Bruce,
was what though? What was it
which
about
is a kind
Lenny?
of a kind of an outlaw comic,
Yeah,
intellectual, a kind of
puncturing sacred cows.
Yeah.
For all that stuff and the hypocrisy of the church.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Jesus. His stuff about Cardinal Newman or whatever it was
Yeah.
back in 1960 was amazing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You know, kind of even listen to it now and you're going, he said that in New York City.
Yeah.
You know, so it is great stuff. So he would have been one of the guiding factors, one of your angels.
Yeah. Even though I know technically, I wasn't sure how he was doing what he was doing, or I liked the idea, and I found long bits of the tape boring. But there was something I was very
Right.
drawn to, and I still am. I just only last week in New York I bought a 6 CD box set of his that's just been released.
Right. Okay. I must get that.
It's called Let the Buyer Beware, and it includes interviews and bits of his stuff, and
So those. So where he was coming from was where you aspired to go, in certain ways.
in a way, I guess.
But he was.
I'm
drawn-
always the types of art experiences that I love are ones which raise the hairs on the back of your neck, which somehow take it to the next level. Whether it's an unusual, you get that a lot in religious speakers. You know, they're able to kind of spark your head. You know, but I've always there's just great bits of music that put the hairs up in the back of your neck. There's a few Bob Dylan songs. There's a few U2 pieces, and that's what I want to do. I want to have I'm not interested in being on stage and just making people laugh. That it has to be some kind of, even if it never makes it, it has to lunge towards the transcendental. It has to make some kind of a grab. 99 times out of 100 you mightn't reach it, right? But every now and again there might be an idea, there might be something that you flick it open, and the night becomes, people are aware in the room, there's something else going on here. This isn't just laughter, there's a bit more there's a something parallel has been opened, and we're all the better for it. And that's ultimately what going on stage is about. It's about trying to. Now the great thing about comedy is that you can't afford to get self-indulgent because the audience will stop laughing. So it's as good for me, because I can, I have all these notions and stuff like that, and I can come across in interviews as if I'm more notional than actual.
Yeah.
And but on stage, because you have to make people laugh, because there's that democracy and there's that guillotine of expectation, it has to be something that somebody from one part of town with very little art in their lives, and somebody from another part of town who lives surrounded by pianos and paintings, that they both can get and say, you hit it on the head. And the only way to do that is if it's not self-indulgent and utterly, that it's an utter communication, that there's no pretense, that's all real, and that's what it's about. And the hard thing about it is that it has to be dressed in laughter. That's the really difficult thing. That's the it's like, it has to be dressed with laughs. It has to be.
But there has to be those two layers going on all the time.
Yeah.
There has to
Otherwise
be.
you're just telling jokes.
Having your show on RT Sunday night called In the Right, it was to be called In the Right Spirit.
Yeah.
And lunging toward the transcendental is exactly what it's about.
Yeah.
I will only play music that sends out something that might send
Yeah.
you there off your back.
Yeah.
From any era, any generation, any style of music, don't give a fuck. As long as it gives listeners some sense of the transcendental.
Yeah.
And I think that's how your original religious yearning is still manifesting itself. I think it's great that you found a forum
Yeah.
where you can put form to it, put a form to it, you know? And it may sound profane to some, but I can hear what you're saying. You know, that you want to do that within the
Comedy.
parameters of comedy.
And it's
But you didn't identify that from the start and say, I'm going to work within this medium this way? Or did that evolve? Did that slowly come to you? I can take people to other levels. I can make
I, but I always knew I had an ability as a speaker.
Okay.
I remember we were myself and Hector O'Huckabong were mates in school, and we were on
It was about 10 to 15 minutes, yeah?
we were on a debating team in school, and we reached the final of this North Leinster competition. And I was the first speaker, Hector was the second speaker. There's a guy called Sean Caheen, who was a direct relative of Peg Sayers,
Alright.
who was the third speaker. And a guy called Michael McGrath, who's now a priest in the Vatican, who was the fourth speaker. And what way it goes is the captain gives a short speech, the second speaker gives the longest speech, third, fourth, and then the captain gives a summing up speech. So I gave my speech, and I'd met a guy that evening, and this is probably why the way I work in terms of things aren't incredibly prepared. I met a guy, we met at about 5 o'clock that evening, a guy called Sean Cronin. He was older than us, and he was very, very clever, and I said, I have this finals, and I was doing it that, I mean, other guys would have written their speeches, but mine still wasn't there. I'm not going to say. And he says, here's a good line. He says, the opposition will soon know how the Israelites felt when the walls of Jericho came a-tumbling down. And I'm 15 now. I'm amazed that I remember it. That was the line, and he'd give me all these other lines like that. I said, excellent. So by the time my summing up speech came out, I remember the guy chairing the debate was just and now to sum up for the B team, the motion was that Thatcherism is bad. I remember saying to Hector, watch this. And I remember getting up, and because I knew, even though my speech was there was very little about Thatcherism, it was filled with all these fantastic, oh, that Jericho, and people loved it.
All right.
So
So you knew you had that energy and that
I knew I had that
ability
kind of ability
from-
to guff it up, you know. And it's about those moments on stage then are fantastic. If you know,
Which they happen ill-frequently. They don't happen, I mean, they will happen once every... Joan Rivers told me that's what she would aspire to do. It would happen once every 10 performances, maybe. You're lucky if you get that connection with the audience where you all float
but it's
or
funny,
go somewhere.
Yeah, it's funny
It happened
because I see the show all the time. I'm less impressed with it
Okay,
than people who see it for the
Okay.
first time.
all right.
A friend of mine, and that might just is a friend of mine, Owen O'Neill, who's a stand-up. We were talking about this one time, and we were saying about how, you know, even though you're doing very well, if you're not in love with it,
All right.
it doesn't matter what your reaction is. He said he was gigging in Toronto, and he'd done this show about giving up drink, and it was a great show, and he received great things all over the world, stuff like that. He finished the show in Toronto, and he said, thank you very much for me, good night, and the audience gave him a standing ovation. And he left, went into the dressing room, he slammed the door, and he said, Canadians, what the fuck do they know?
All right, okay.
You know? So
Yeah.
But it is once in every 10
You'll get that.
that, and it's amazing. And nobody knows exactly what it is, or it's not even particularly funny. But there's this just energy that inhabits the room, and you're the top of the hose,
Yeah.
and you're spraying everybody, and we all get just lifted. Well, it's great.
But there was talk of you giving things up at 40, the Buddhist kind of thing, and just wandering off into
Leonard
the fucking
Cohen.
distance. You're not going to do
Leonard
that,
Cohen
are
said
you?
this thing. I read it in some book. It says the Buddhist philosophy that at the age of 40,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything. I've 5 years to go yet now.
You have, yeah,
It'd be great.
okay.
Wouldn't it be great to have those kind of?
But you're not going to do it because you're addicted to the sort of spray, the hose, and the...
You
aren't
never
you?
know. You never know. Everybody's capable of doing something that shocks their friends.
All right, okay. Do you want more kids? Would you have more kids?
Uh,
Or have you had enough? Is that it? The experience is finished?
yeah, yeah.
Would you?
I think so. Yeah.
Despite the fears or the kind of the
Yeah,
going
because
toe to toe with yourself and all.
Oh yeah. Kids are great.
So you're not in any way
I wouldn't
wounded
get
or
a vasectomy or anything.
but not yet. You're not going
No,
for that. Or
no.
nor would you do it live on telly.
No.
All right. The question about if somebody is driven to lunge towards the transcendental, does that mean, now this is only a tangential question, does that mean they'll never stay in a relationship? They're always looking for something higher and something better, even within love.
I'm not asking you why you left the relationship,
Yeah.
but are you always driven within to go higher, to aim higher, to get the same hit out of love?
But sometimes aiming higher can be staying with the same person.
It can be.
Yeah.
So that's your answer.
That's my answer. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't feel you're ever pushed forward to kind of just move on in terms of love and romance?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I certainly don't enter into any relationship with fleeing in mind.
Okay. Do you enter in with faith? When we have failures of whatever nature, our faith can be chipped away. Our romantic hearts can be corroded. Do you still have those faiths and those beliefs and those?
But I won't talk anymore. But this is the one thing I say about the thing is that I think when you go through a breakup, you're forced to ask yourself a lot of questions about what type of lover you are.
Not lover not in the physical sense.
No.
You mean
Yeah.
person who loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your shortcomings? Why has this relationship failed? And what people ought to expect from love. And I think when you go through a breakup, they're the questions that's what you have to face up to. And none of us, very few of us ever get the right answer back. Very few of us ever come out of it with a sentence that can explain anything, or that can justify, or that can even, you can't nail. No experience can ever be properly explained in a sentence.
All right.
Properly, because it's got so many. It's like an octopus that goes off in many different directions, And I think that. Well, that's all I'll say about that.
Well, then, at the end of the day, would you describe Tommy Tiernan as a loving person? If he went through a period of reassessment, reevaluation, can you love?
But even that makes it sound like it's
Something
like it's a business thing that the company's the company is
liquidated if you can't love.
Yeah, you know what I mean, and that you're kind of, well, how do we move on with the future? These are never, I can't even.
But you can answer the question about whether you feel you can love or not.
But I don't want to.
Oh, do you know?
No, because
Because you brought this subject up, that's why I read it in that Sunday Times
Right.
interview about the ability to love or not to love. And this is what, if you're exploring Buddhism or whatever,
Yeah.
what is at the core of Tommy Tiernan? What's at the core of me? And we aspire towards having the ability to love. Fundamentally.
I used to have this line in the show a few years ago, which was, I can't remember how. It wasn't even a funny line. It was, do you ever be walking on the street and just get have to sit down because of these feelings of overwhelming love that you have for humanity?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I imagine happens to everybody. You suddenly have these huge waves of genuine, non-committal love towards the human race. I don't think I'm talking about you because I don't feel as if I can. I can't think of a.
So it's the only question that fails you is the question of love, isn't it? Still. It's the only question that's faced you in the 60 minutes we've been talking.
Well, do I love other people? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do love other people. Yes, I do. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
you love your kids. I asked you that earlier. I mean, if
Yeah.
you love your children, you do to a deep degree.
That's the easier question to answer than am I a loving person. But same thing. Yes, I love lots of people.
Okay. Do you love Tommy Tiernan? Because as you said, and that's the part of the joke that's to me the truth. It has to start here.
Yeah. Do I love Tommy too?
If you don't, and I've always said this to friends, first, it sounds like a really egotistical thing. You must first love yourself,
Yeah.
before you can give up that heart and soul to somebody else. I just happen to believe it. So does Tommy Tiernan love Tommy Tiernan irrespective of who else he loves? Or is that part of the journey? Is that the journey? Is that the essential quest? And that is the last question, Tommy.
Yeah, I must do. I think. I don't know.
A lot of rumination before the answer
Yeah.
comes, isn't there, though?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not. I'm not planted. Do you know what I mean? It's not a. It's not a definite declaration. It's. I have a hunch that I love myself.
You're aspiring towards loving oneself. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. That's how bad.
Hi, Joe Jackson here again. I thank you for listening to this edition of the Joe Jackson Interviews podcast. More can be heard on my website, joejacksoninterviewer.com.